This video is going to go over how to effectively structure an explanation to analyze language. I'm starting from the annotation that I went over in a previous video that's in the upper left on this page, and it's asking the question, what is Esperanza's opinion of her family's new home? So I annotated this passage to find multiple pieces of language that show that Esperanza's opinion of her family's new home is negative. And in this video, I'm going to be focusing specifically on this quote that's circled in blue in the middle here, windows so small you'd think they were holding their breath. When I annotated, I made a couple observations about the language, and the first was that windows tend to symbolize freedom. The second was that there's personification in the phrase, they were holding their breath, which I then interpreted to mean that holding breath can show lack of freedom or waiting. And then from both of these pieces of language together, I concluded that Esperanza doesn't feel free here. She's waiting for a better house. So that's the analysis that I'm going to be putting into writing in this video. If you look below that at the explanation structure that I have here, it actually goes in the same order as the information that I noted on my annotation. So when we're writing an explanation about language, the first thing that I'm going to start with is the most specific thing that I have to say, and then I'm going to get broader as I go. So the most specific thing that I'm going to say in my explanation is to make an observation about language. And to connect to the annotation, the observations that I made about language were that windows symbolize freedom and that there's personification here. So that's going to be first in my explanation when I write that out. And then the second thing that I'm going to do is analysis of meaning. So analyzing the meaning of that observation that I made about language. So that's this second step here off of personification, that holding one's breath can show lack of freedom or waiting. And then my final step in the explanation structure, number 3 on here, is the connection to the topic sentence. And that's what's up here highlighted in yellow. Esperanza doesn't feel free here. She's waiting for a better house. So what you'll notice is if I have a really well-structured annotation, that actually gives me the order that I want to go in when I write out that analysis. Let's go over to the right-hand side of this slide where I've written out my analysis, and my topic sentence answers the question, right? Esperanza has a negative opinion of her family's new home. And then my first point is her description of the house reflects her own experience of living in it. And now I get to that quote, my illustration. One of her complaints is that the house has windows so small you'd think they were holding their breath. I've both numbered and tried to color code to show you the order in which this explanation is happening. So the first thing that I'm going to start with is an observation about language. Windows often symbolize freedom. And then I'm connecting that to meaning. And so their small size suggests that the house offers limited freedom. In some explanations, you'll just be making one observation about language, connect to meaning, and then go straight to the connection to the topic sentence. But here I actually had noticed a second thing about the language. So I'm going back to number 1, another observation about language, the personification of the windows as holding their breath. And then why does that matter? Again, highlights a lack of freedom and also evokes the idea of waiting. All right. So now I've gotten my 2 more specific parts of analysis done, right? Windows symbolize freedom. They're small, so the house doesn't offer much freedom. The windows are also holding their breath. That suggests more lack of freedom and also waiting. So now my final broadest step is making that connection to the topic sentence, and I'm connecting those 2 observations together to the topic sentence. So number 3 on here. The description of the windows matches Esperanza's feelings. She was hoping that a new home would drastically improve her life, but she instead feels limited by this home. She feels trapped by Mango Street and is still waiting for a nicer home and more promising future. And now I've made that connection all the way to the topic sentence. So it's really clear how I've started with the quote, the windows, what I've noticed about the language, what that language means, and then how that helps me answer my overall question. And then after I've done all that, I move on to my next point, which you see at the bottom there. So that's it. Thanks for watching.